What's up, guys? My name's Doofus Mcdooface, and this is my official Mastermind guide for Legion TD2. I know I've made a Mastermind guide before, but I think this one will be a little more in-depth. I'm also going to try PowerPoints for a lot more learning material, and hopefully that helps my thoughts come out a little more clear. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. I think Masterminds, the three biggest things are: what are your choices for masterminds, right? So we're going to go through all the masterminds we have. What do you enjoy, right? I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but we all know Fiesta is like my favorite mastermind, right? So although like maybe this one's better, maybe that one's worse, at the end of the day, you still need to enjoy playing the game. We're not all trying to be robots when we play Legion TD2, all right? We want to enjoy the game while trying to win. So that's quite important. And then, hopefully, that same thing fits into what is your right fit. Like, what style works for you? Is it an overbuildy, like castle style, where you play really safe, really conservative, and play for late game? Or do you play aggressive with like Cartel or Fiesta by pushing lots of workers? Or are you balanced, right? Are you going for like a balanced greed cash out? Well, hopefully, I'm going to go through all of that. And maybe I'll even look at my stats. I do have Legion TD2 pulled up. I'll even show you my stats of my masterminds. If we really got into it, I could show you higher elo. But for now, let's just get right into it. That's sort of the overview of this. All right, so without further ado, the first mastermind we're going to be discussing is lock-in, right? Lock-in is the first mastermind that you're able to play when you first start playing the game. I think there's also greed, but lock-in is sort of the mastermind that all beginners should start with. Why? Well, you learn how to play one singular unit really well, right? A lot of people will come into my stream and ask, "Hey, what mastermind should I go with when I'm first starting to learn the game?" And I think lock-in is one of those 1, 2, 3 combos that you definitely should start playing at the start. You pick a unit, Hoda, Yuzora. Now, right there, I'm alluding to a lot of tier 5 units. These are units that cost around 190 to 200 gold. I think those are perfect units to lock in when you're first starting to learn the game. However, even beyond learning, beyond beginning the game, I think lock-in is a fine strategy. I mean, it's 4 income, which is pretty consistent, right? If you're really good with the unit, I remember last season, one of the players, his name is Faker. He would lock in Poda, Priestess of the Abyss, all the way to the top 10. He had 3 accounts in the top 10 last season until they nerfed Poda. But he had 3 accounts in the top 10, and he would just play Poda, 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 and you knew that he was going to play it. And it was great with it, right? Even in the top 10, the income differential, the strategy that he had that unit every time was enough for him to consistently win games at a high level. So lock-in is perfectly fine to abuse and play it over and over and over again if you're good with it. Now, me personally, I like lock-in right now because of the little change they made. So lock-in, 4 income, you choose your unit. They added something really cool recently where lock-in with 4 income, click the random button, and it will randomly not only choose your unit, it actually randomly creates your role. So you don't get to pick your 6 units. It's going to randomly create your role, which could also be good for new players, right? Because if you're just starting the game and you don't know what are good units to roll, the game gives you a preset role, which is 80% of the time pretty solid, right? Now, there are times it's definitely not good, and there's times where it's absolutely amazing. So it is randomized. But you not only get that 4 income, you also get 7 gold to start with. So you're going to have 257 gold. This is pretty sweet. I actually did it in Nova Cup, the tournament, quite a few times because, well, I know most of the units, so any random unit that I got with a relatively decent roll was great. That extra 7 gold really added up. So I feel really, really comfortable with, if this was a tier list per se, random lock-in would be quite high on my list. But But I think lock-in, it's just a great starter mastermind. I think most players should become relatively comfortable with it and understand what are my really strong units. Like for me, if I was going to lock in something, I'm going to lock in Seedling so I can start Sakura. I'm going to lock in Poda, Priestess of the Abyss. Hope I get some pierce damage. Or Nightmare if, let's say, Vampire's in the game, right? So there's a lot of like solid units that you can just click over and over and over again with lock-in, and you're really not at that big of a disadvantage. Can be really strong. Yeah, so that would be lock-in. Solid mastermind. I think the skill level can be beginner to advanced. I don't think that there's any need to really like know the game beyond maybe if you're doing the random, it can get a little wild, right? But at least if you go random, it gives you that roll, and you don't actually have to do the roll yourself. So even random, I wouldn't say the difficulty level is that high. I think pretty much it's a really solid mastermind lock-in. All right, now I do need to clarify about lock-in. I made a mistake at the start of the video. Lock-in, you choose a single unit, and after their change, they've made a change recently in a couple of patches. You don't get to choose your role, right? You do not get to choose the role at the start of the game. I apologize for making that mistake. They keep changing up all the masterminds. So when you do click lock-in, whether it's regular lock-in or random, it will choose your 6 units for you. And that's what makes lock-in still a very strong mastermind. I just want to clarify that. Your units are chosen for you. Unless I said that before, and then I'm just reiterating something I already said. But yeah, they're going to choose those units for you. And normally they're going to give you a pretty solid roll. 80 to 90% of the time, the rolls are going to be pretty solid. And that's why I still like lock-in. Like, lock-in is still quite solid, even if it's not random. Do just want to clarify. Hopefully I fixed that for you guys. Greed. Another one of these sort of starter, right? Lock and Greed. These are the 2 masterminds you're going to start the game with. Greed, plus 5 income. You don't get any extra gold, right? You're just 250 gold. I mean, there's not going to be much to say, but I'll try to go into it. Greed, of course, is going to give you those 10 units, right, to choose from. You're going to have 10 units to choose from, pick 6. And I'm not crazy, right? It's 10 units, right? I've played so many games of Legion. I would sound absolutely crazy if it's more than 10. Yep, it's 10. That's what a greed roll looks like right there, right? You're just going to get 10 units, bang, bang, just like that. And you're going to get to choose, okay, which of these 6 would I like to choose? Whereas with the random lock-in, you don't get to choose. Regular lock-in, you are going to get to choose. But if, let's say, I locked in Harpy, well, Harpy's going to be right there for me, guaranteed in my roll, right? So, Greed plus 5 income, it's safe, it's consistent. You're rarely going to have any bad rolls with it, right? There's nothing crazy. Sometimes you can get amazing rolls. Sometimes you can get some average rolls. But overall, it's really safe. Actually, here's a bit of lore to Legion TD2. So many high elo players, right? These are like the top 25, top 15, top 10 players. So many of those players in Nova Cup, the tournament, would play Greed that they actually changed the tournament where you could only play Mastermind once. And Greed is 100%. Greed is the Mastermind that changed those tournaments. The people, the viewer, I don't know about the viewers, but definitely the tournament officials and some of the casters felt like the tournaments were just getting boring, right? You'd see Aviator, King Dans, Shadowwings. Everybody was playing Greed over and over again. And so you'd have the first game is Greed, the second game is Greed, the third game is Greed, right? And so with all the masterminds implemented in the game, they wanted to mix it up and make sure that all the masterminds were being used at least a little more equally, right? Then they got a little crazy and said only one player can win with a mastermind, but that's besides the point, right? Greed, really solid mastermind. let's see what I said, low risk, decent reward, which is true, right? Like +5 income, your basic 250 gold. You're not gaining anything outstanding, but you're not really losing anything, right? So I think Agreed is another like perfectly fine starter mastermind. Sort of learn how to work those roles. You don't have to do anything too special. And yeah, I mean, Greed's it's a solid mastermind. Me personally, I'm not a fan. It's boring, right? And I'll probably go through this and just give my honest opinion that like if I go back to lock-in, regular lock-in is boring in my opinion, right? Greed is boring in my opinion. But if you're just trying to learn how to play the game, right? If you're trying to get a feel for the game, then absolutely pound the lock-in, pound the greed, get a feel for the game before you do crazier masterminds, right? Once again, are you trying to have fun? Are you trying to win? You've got to sort of choose that for yourself when you choose a mastermind at the start of the game. But that would be greed. Redraw. Now this is going to be a crazy one, and hopefully I can correctly describe this, and we'll definitely go into the sandbox and show you exactly how redraw works. So redraw, you're going to get the 4 income, the 250 gold, right? However, your roll, right? Your roll is 6 units, preset 6 units, and you're stuck with those 6 units until you click redraw. Now, when you click redraw, it's going to cost you an assortment of gold. The earlier waves, it's not as expensive. The later waves gets very expensive. So, once again, we'll go in the sandbox and take a look at this. The first couple of waves, redraw is very inexpensive. I think it's like 1 gold for the first couple of waves, right? So you just redraw, 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 and you're just chaosing, right? You're just randomly getting 6 brand new units. Now there can be good stuff to this, and there can be bad stuff. Let's say you have a priestess, right? And you love the priestess, and you've got 5 other units that you dislike, right? When you hit that redraw button, you can't keep the priestess. You can't say, hey, priestess, I want to keep you in my role and get 5 different ones. No, it's a completely all 6 of those units are gone. Now you could get lucky and get priestess and mask in the first redraw, or you might not see the priestess in 100 rolls, right? I actually played redraw in a classic once, and this is something that I would say is a huge downside to redraw, and why a lot of people are probably not huge fans. I was going for Chieftain Cheese. Chieftain Cheese is the Desert Pilgrim upgraded to Lost Chieftain. You do that. You do a ton of Lost Chieftains on a Priestess of the Abyss. Make it really huge, right? And it just heals forever. It's like a cheese strat, right? It's cheesing the game. I did not have the Pilgrim. I needed the Pilgrim in order to make my build work, right? And I had chosen redraw as my mastermind. I had to click the redraw button, spending gold, 19 gold. I had to hit that button 20 times before the Desert Pilgrim came up. So I spent almost 800 gold. It was 780 gold or something like that. It was over 700 gold. It was an insane amount. And I trolled the game, right? I trolled the game by just going for this, but I was trying to prove a point that I wanted to get the Pilgrim. And in that moment, I realized that, man, redraw, although it says it has this high skill, high reward, right? It's just so randomized that although you see that combo and you're thinking, this is the combo I want to go for, it's not even a guarantee that you're going to get it. Not without spending an exorbitant amount of gold, right? So you do have to watch out for that. And as I've said, this is sort of a mastermind that it has a sort of higher skill just because, I mean, it's sort of random, right? It's definitely a higher skill mastermind because of the randomness to it, right? And you need to be able to work with these 6 random units. So let's take a look at redraw in the sandbox. So you're going to click redraw, random roll, infinite rerolls. We've just got to click something from before. So wave 1 costs 1 gold to redraw.
right? So I've got all these units. I'm going to click redraw, and I have 6 completely different units. And you can just keep hitting it over and over, and let's see if it does it for me. Oh yeah, look at that. So wave 17, it costs 22 gold. So if I'm trying to fish for the Nightmare and the Butcher, right, I would just have to keep spending 22 gold, 22 gold, 22 gold endlessly in order to get what I'm looking for. That can really add up and hurt your game, right? So although you have that perfect combo in mind, you might just not get it. So all these things make Redraw both a lucrative and could be very, very, very highly rewarded, or it could be super punished. And that's why I'd probably have Redraw at a very high skill requirement, and also not very high on my list of good masterminds to play. It's not in a great spot right now. But it's still a fun one to play. But if you do like the randomness, right now, I would say do not play Redraw. I would recommend Chaos. I think Chaos has a way greater upside than Redraw. But if you're a Redraw lover, then good for you. That's Redraw. YOLO! Another one of these completely random rolls. Once again, this is going to have a high skill level. Just going to warn you guys. YOLO, you start with 7 income. And if you reroll, right? If you reroll, you're going to get 1. And I guess I should have said that prior for lock-in, right? If we go all the way back. For lock-in and greed, you get 1 reroll. Doesn't cost you anything. You get 4 units that you could switch in with your roll. So yeah, as I was saying, lock-in and greed are going to have 1 reroll. Won't cost you anything. It's going to have 4 units that you can switch in. So it's like you're going to have 10 units again, but 6 of those units will be what you already had. 4 will be new ones that you can add to your roll. But going back to the YOLO, so you do have 1 reroll, but you're going to lose 1 income, right? Not 1 gold, 1 income. So every wave, you know, oh, you have 20 income, and then they give you 19, or they give you 20 gold, and then they give you 20 gold, right? Every wave. Well, you're gonna lose 1. You're gonna lose 1 income on that. But YOLO is a very fun mastermind. YOLO is a very fun mastermind, but it can be hard. You're gonna get 6 completely random units. These units do not have to be a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, as lock-in is, right? These units could be 2 tier 2s and 4 tier 6s. You can get absolutely randomized out of this world, right? Really bad things can happen. You can get a tough roll, or you can get an absolutely insane roll that really pays off. It really just depends, right? It just depends on your luck, and it can be good for learning, right? Now I wouldn't recommend it, but it's really one of those rolls where, like, all right, these are the 6 units I have to use for the game. How do I get through this? All right, I need to shift for that tier 6 unit. I'm gonna somehow have to save a ton of my gold on this one wave. I'm gonna have to shift it, or I'm gonna have to save a ton of this gold just to place it, because I know I'm really bad wave 7, right? So YOLO is really good at forcing you to do crazy things in order to make the roll work. Or what a lot of people will do is you start with that 7 income, the roll has those weird like 4 T6s, just re-roll wave 1. And now you've got 6 income, and hopefully you're lucky, and you get like a decent reroll, right? You get some tier 1s, tier 2s on wave 1. That will help you get through the game and be like, oh, okay, this won't be quite as hard now. So I really like YOLO, and let's take a look at it. All right, so YOLO, here we go. You're going to click it, and bam, these are our 6 units. Those are the 6 units we have to use. So in this example of the units we received, our highest cost unit is 150 gold, right? So this would be a really solid roll for the early game, and I'd have absolutely nothing for the late game. So I definitely want to reroll, but maybe just in the late game, right? Just in the late game would I need to reroll. So So I would start, maybe get a lead, hopefully, right? Because this is quite a great combination of units. But once we approach like wave 14 and so forth on, like 14 and then later on, 15, I'm absolutely in trouble. So this is one of those scenarios where we would use the reroll just at a later point in the game. But yeah, so that's once again, that's YOLO. We can see it again. Bam, just 6 random units, right? Just 6 completely random units. This one, a little more variety, right? But it just depends. And that's just the luck of YOLO. I actually do enjoy YOLO quite a bit. I don't always play it, but when I will play it, hilariously, is when I know that I have very little game time. So because I stream, I'll queue a game, definitely not be ready, and then I rush over and I see that the game is about to start, and I click YOLO and I place a unit instantly, right? And the reason I'm clicking YOLO is because I don't have time to go through a full roll, right? I don't have time to pick and choose my units. So this is one of those times where it's sort of YOLO, just I wasn't paying attention. Oh, crap. Let me hit YOLO and place a unit as fast as humanly possible so that I don't get kicked out of the game for being AFK. And I guess it could even be used at like the, you want to be lazy. I don't really want to think about my role. Let's just see what the game gives me. But you could also do that for a redraw or chaos as well. Yeah, YOLO, really cool mastermind. Skill level, I would say medium. You know, when I first started using YOLO, I'd say it would high skill level, but I think medium just because it does give you that learning experience too of like, how do I use these units? So it can sort of be used in a better way, right? So I like YOLO. No real issues with it. Chaos. Another one of these random units. Yes, I know I've said that 3 times in a row now. So you get 4 income. You do not have a reroll, right? So there's absolutely no rerolling. That if those are the 6 units you have for that wave. Those are the 6 units that you have to use. They're completely random. But if I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to verify this, it is a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. Now, let me just verify that, just so I'm not talking out of my butt. Yep, that would be correct. Yep, I do have completely random units here. And then as we'll see how Chaos works, show you before I tell you about it, bam, I got a different assortment of units, right? Each one being a tier 1. And look, we kept the poly. Sorry, guys, I just want to verify that I did have the correct units there, the correct tiers. So yeah, so you're going to get 6 random units every wave. It's completely randomized, but you are guaranteed tier 1, tier 2, tier 6, etc. This can be very powerful. Can be very powerful with insane combos you can build, right? It can also suck if you don't get those units you need. Let me just sort of clarify what I'm trying to say here. Let's say you get Nightmare, Butcher, right? You're able to build that combo early, and you're in a really good spot. But wave 15 is coming up, right? The Magic Arcane wave. Wave 15 is coming up, and you keep chaosing, right? Wave after wave. You're looking for any unit that has Arcane tanking or magic damage. Wave 13 comes. No magic, no arcane. Wave 14 comes. No magic, no arcane. Wave 15 comes and no magic, no arcane. So you really had no chance at all to hold wave 15 properly, right? You just weren't given the units to hold the wave. And so you're sort of screwed. However, on the flip side of that, here's where Chaos is absolutely busted and super overpowered, right? You're getting saved on for wave 17, right? Wave 17, like a Pierce fortified, Impact fortified type of wave. And you really don't have the tankage. You've got some piercing damage, right? Let's say you've got some Trinity archers, right? Or you've got some Vulcan cannons, but you have no fortified tankage. You did way too much arcane. And they're sending 17, right? 16, you've got nothing. 15, you had nothing. Wave 17 rolls, you know you're getting sent, and bam, the game gives you Mudman. It gives you an impact fortified unit. And you place 4 or 5 of them, harden them, and now you hold wave 17, and your opponents are like, where did these units come from? Well, you got lucky, right? You were more skilled at rolling with chaos, right? You were just more skilled. So chaos is really fun to play. Now one thing, and I'm glad I put it right here, you gotta upgrade. When I used to play chaos, I played with my buddy L1. We were really good at duoing. But when I would play chaos, he knew what he was doing when he played chaos. When I would play chaos, I would have a bad habit of trying to create too many combinations, right? Too many cool game combos that are really strong. But I would just keep placing each of the combos without finishing any of them, right? So I would never upgrade the units. And so I was extremely weak, right? So yes, I had the value. Yes, I had a Disciple in Steeds and a Nightmare in Butcher and Poda in Mask, but I never would upgrade to a Starcaller. I never would upgrade to a Doppelganger. I would never upgrade my units. You have to upgrade units in order for them to be powerful, right? So if you get too greedy and you're like, oh, but I could use this for that wave. Oh, I could use this for that wave. And you never upgrade units, it makes you super weak. It's almost like, for example, if you guys know the Bounty Hunter Kingpin epidemic, right? You have a Bounty Hunter, and you're generating stacks, but you're only 3/4 of the way there. You have like 80 mana. And you keep getting too greedy to upgrade to a Kingpin, so you don't get that power spike. You don't get the value that you're building. So you keep leaking on value or over value because you just won't upgrade the damn unit. That same thing will happen in Chaos. If you don't upgrade your units, you will get punished. But I really enjoy Chaos, and it's both one of those amazing masterminds and one of the terrible masterminds, because when you play against it and you keep seeing your opponents rolling the perfect unit, it really does get draining on your confidence, on your willpower to win the game. But in terms of skill level, I would say this is a medium one. You do sort of learn combinations with this mastermind. It's not too crazy, right? But you do need that discipline to actually upgrade units and sort of go one path, right? If you spread yourself too thin like butter on bread, you're gonna get toasted, right? You're gonna get toasted. So you've definitely got to be careful not getting too greedy with too many combos. But I do enjoy Chaos. All right, and my favorite mastermind, I know some of you guys might have just skipped to this. I mean, maybe. I did add the cards where you can go from greed to cash out to chaos, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Fiesta, my favorite mastermind in the whole game. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but it is super fun. It goes all the way back to the first things I said when we were choosing our masterminds and defining them at the start was you need to have fun playing the game. And for me, leaking and getting gold for that perfect Fiesta where you leak 1 to 2 creeps just supersedes everything else in this game. It's almost more fun for me personally to leak a perfect Fiesta than win certain games. I actually get more dopamine from a perfect leak than winning some games. That's just how it works. But if you don't know what Fiesta is a mastermind where you start with just 250 gold, so no extra gold, no income, all right? Nothing extra. You're not going to get the castle income later. You have nothing. The only way you can get additional gold, the way your mastermind works, is to leak. So you actually don't want to hold the wave at the start of the game, right? I mean, you still get paid throughout the entire game, but the best way to play Fiesta, right, is to leak at the start of the game. I guess I haven't described all the best ways to play the mastermind, but for Fiesta, right, just a really quick telling you guys with Chaos not to forget upgrading. With Fiesta, don't try to Fiesta the entire game. It is really beneficial to just leak a first 2, 3, 4 waves, right? And then stop leaking. Because the amount of gold that you lose supersedes the amount of gold that you're going to get here on the side, right? Thank you, Dan Wolf, for giving me these numbers, right? So if you leak wave 1, you get 12 gold. If you leak wave 2, you get 14 gold. It does not scale based on how many creeps, how many of the units that you leak, right? If you leak the entire wave, you get 12 gold. If you leak one unit, the perfect Fiesta, you get 12 gold, right? So not only is it important for you to stop leaking later on in the game because it just doesn't make sense, it's also important that when you do Fiesta, when you do leak, it should be a very small amount, right? And once again, this is not my Fiesta guide, but the way I've been playing Fiesta recently is I try to leak waves 1 or 2, and then I never want to leak again unless the opponents send really aggressively, right? Like, okay, I leak wave 1, I leak wave 2, I'm done, and now waves 3, 4, and 5, the only way that I will leak is to a power mercenary, right? If the opponents send me a brood, I will probably leak really nicely, right? A very small leak, and it makes it worth it for me. Other than that, I'm just going to hold the rest of the game. I've gotten that little gold at the start, kind of like a cash out, but I was able to push more workers, and that's good for me. But that's just sort of how I like to play Fiesta. But I should probably stick to what the other Doofus said. Yeah, I mean, I love playing Fiesta. But yeah, you should think about your teammates. Sometimes you're going to get teammates that absolutely despise Fiesta because you are inherently giving gold to your opponents, right? You are giving gold to your opponents because when you leak, the opponent that's sending you gets gold, and then the opponent that is receiving from you also gets a little bit of gold. So when you leak, even if it's a perfect 2-3 creeps, they're still getting a little bit of gold. So that is something to look out for. That is also why sometimes you want to pick a combo that works really well with your teammate, and why Fiesta is probably better with a duo, right? Fiesta is one of those masterminds where if you're playing with a duo, it's probably going to go a lot smoother. Now, what do I mean by that? If your duo goes, and we'll get into this mastermind, Cartel, right? Cartel is one of those aggressive masterminds. Fiesta is one of those aggressive masterminds. A YOLO, another high income, right? These things can get scaling and sort of snowball really quickly. And it can work together, right? And your teammate is expecting you to leak, isn't going to be too upset. Now, if your teammate starts a Sakura, right, or an egg, it is not beneficial for your teammate for you to Fiesta, right? It's hurting him. He's lower workers, and he's trying to protect his Sakura. He does not want the Sakura to die. He wants to get those stacks. He does not want his egg to die. He wants to get the full egg hatched, right? So it's not as beneficial for your teammate for you to Fiesta. And so that's where you'll get some teammates who are upset when you Fiesta, or just don't weld together very well, right? So that is something to look out for. Fiesta is probably the biggest mastermind in the entire game that has either a love-hate relationship, right? You'll go into venting and see people who love Fiesta, and then you go into venting and see people who absolutely despise it and think it should be completely kicked out of ranked. It just depends. Yeah, and if you want to get really good at Fiesta, learning really good openers that pro leak to snails or just leak 1 to 2 creeps is just so amazing, right? Like, let's take a look real quick. All right, so I've got a Fiesta roll here, and just really quickly, what I'm saying by choosing openers that are good, right, that could pro leak, I'm going to place a gate guard here right now. A gate guard holds wave 1, but if you receive a snail, you will leak professionally, and it will make for a really good Fiesta, right? So this is going to be one of those Fiestas where you pro leak because they sent, right? So you would not have leaked unless they sent a snail. And so this is sort of where Fiesta can work really well. If you read your opponents really well, it can allow you to play the game better, right? So here we go. We're going to watch. I'm going to leak 3 to 4 creeps, and then I'm going to get my Fiesta gold. Right there, there's my 12 Fiesta gold, right? And the leak was not that bad. So yeah, overall, I mean, Fiesta is really sweet, but not only can you get punished by an unhappy teammate, you can also get punished by your opponents, right? Because in the example that I just showed you, we were only leaking if they sent a snail. Well, let's say you go with a Mastermind that leaks to no send, right? You want to force the Fiesta. You want to make sure that you leak wave 1, 2, 3 to no send, right? Well, if your opponent sends you a power merc, right, you're going to leak bad, right? You're going to be leaking 70, 80, 90%. And that makes your Fiesta not worth it at all. So yeah, it's cool. You got 16 gold, but you just gave 24 gold to both opponents, right? So there can be upsides and there can be downsides. And so with that in mind, I would still give Fiesta sort of the middle medium, right? I wouldn't recommend it to beginners because it does still have a high skill cap. But I still think in the medium level, anybody who's played 50, 60 games, 30 games is probably going to have more of an idea of like, oh, this leaks a little. Oh, maybe this will be all right if I get a send. And it's just sort of fun to play Fiesta too when you're first learning the game a little bit to force you to push workers, right? Because as Fiesta, you're still going to push workers, right? You're not really trying to leak on value unless they send hard. Like, you're trying to hold with as little value as possible and have the most workers, if that makes sense, right? Like, I want to be 6 workers on wave 3, be 70 under, and if they send, then I get a God of Fiesta. If they don't, then I've had 6 workers, I've generated a ton of Mythium, and I can either scale or I can punish my opponent. But that's more details about Fiesta. I love Fiesta. My favorite Mastermind, no doubt. Hope you guys like it too. Cash out. Now, cash out continually is getting nerfed. So before I say this is a beginner or an advanced, I'm going to right off the bat say that cash out is in a bad spot. Cash out used to be, I believe, 274 gold when they first unveiled cash out. So they just keep taking gold away from it, which really takes away the allure. And the reason that those extra 1, 2, 3 gold or 4 gold count and matter so much is because you're trying to get that perfect 5th or 6th worker, depending on what you start. For example, like Priestess of the Abyss, you need a couple of gold, right? You need a couple of gold in order to get that 5th worker during wave 2. This happens with a lot of the Masterminds. A lot of the units. Let's see if we can find one. All right, so let's try a cash out one right here. See if we can get one of those units that I'm referring to. Okay, we've got a Nightmare right here. Nightmare is a good one. We've also got a Sky Queen. So you start the game with 270 gold, right? You are cash out. So let's take both. Right? If I place a Sky Queen, right? Oh, this is perfect. If I place a Sky Queen, I push a worker, and I do a King Up, right? I'm at 98 gold, right? I'm at 98 gold. Well, prior to the nerf after nerf after nerf, if that gold was 272, after this wave commences, right, I'm going to have exactly enough gold for 2 more workers. So I'll have 5 workers. And so that's sort of what I'm saying is that you're trying to get 5 or 6 workers as fast as possible. But because of the nerf, now I can't do that. Now I am stuck with 48 gold looking like a doofus. And I'm just holding on to 48 gold here, doing nothing. That is not advantageous. So you're going to want to choose units, if you do go with cash out, choose units that are not 200 gold, right? The Sky Queen right there was 200 gold. So if you go with a 200 gold unit, you're not going to get away with that extra worker. Same thing with Sakura. Used to give you a 4th worker, right? Because Sakura costs 250 gold at the start. But because of the changes, now, without getting snailed or something crazy, your teammate being Fiesta, you're not going to get that extra worker. You're just going to be stuck with a ton of gold and not an extra worker. Now, these are the downsides to Cash Out, right? Cash Out is still a really strong starter. There's a couple of tier 6s that you can start with. LOD, Holy Avenger. Maybe that's it now, right? Yeah, I guess that's it now. In addition, for certain masterminds like Egg, all right, Grarl into Egg, this offers a lot more protection, that extra 20 gold. That will make sure that you don't leak, theoretically. But man, I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm really down on the Cash Out nerfs. When I actually created this video, this PowerPoint, it said 271 gold, and one of my buddies said, "Hey, before you make that video, make sure you change it to 270 now, since that's what the nerf did." But with all that being said, I still have a lot of analytical doofs. These are videos where I've done a lot of analysis. I've really thought about all the pieces of the game with Cash Out. Now, why do I choose to do that? It's because of the 5-6 workers, right? In a lot of these situations, I'll start with a tier 1 upgraded Bone Crusher, Oathbreaker. Sometimes I'd even do like a Hellraiser. That's not 5-6 workers. But sort of these things that allow me to push a lot more workers at the start. And that extra 20 gold almost guarantees that you get that 5th or even that 6th if you're going to be aggressive worker. But yeah, Cash Out, I mean, I think it'd be fine for beginners. Beginners, you guys probably aren't going to instantly know, oh, I need to get that 5th, 6th workers as fast as possible. But for the more advanced players, almost starting to not even recommend this Mastermind just because of the constant nerfs. It seems silly that the couple extra gold would matter, but just think about it. Just bear with me for 1 second, right? Random lock-in gains 7 gold. Gains 7 gold and has 4 income. Cash Out now only has 270 gold. That's only a 13 gold overhead. It only has 13 gold more and no income. So it's really starting to lose its luster. But once again, I'm not trying to say which Mastermind to play. I'm just trying to give an overview of which you could play. That's just my perspective on Cash Out. Maybe not being the strongest Mastermind at the moment. But it's still average, right? And if you like playing tier 6s, right? Great Red Eyes. Great Boar. You could also place a Great Boar on wave 1, right? If you like placing that really, really big unit and just pushing workers, right? Going for the canopy, going for the violet on wave 1, just so you're in no danger, pushing worker, then this might be the Mastermind for you, right? Once again, coming down to what do you enjoy. That's just how it is. Castle. Now, Castle and me have an interesting relationship. Castle, you start with 250 gold, and then after wave 10, you get a 45 income buff. This is insanity, right? It's insanity if you can make it there, all right? It is really, really a strong Mastermind for the late game. Right? At the start of the game, you don't get that Fiesta gold. You don't get that Cash Out extra gold, right? You have no income, right? You're just 250 gold flat. Nothing extra added. But if you can get to that mid game, to wave 11, now you're cooking. Excuse me. Now you're cooking. All right? Now you're looking really good. As long as you're in the middle on the power score, or if you're ahead, oh, you can just instantly win the game, right? It also is great defense for when you get starved in the mid game, right? Somebody says, oh, let's go 10 into 14, and they don't know that you have Castle, and you're just slowly outscaling their save, right? They're saving Mythium against you, but it isn't working very well because you've got 45 income to make up for them saving Mythium. Now, with all this said, I try to avoid Castle. Once again, some of the Masterminds I prefer are the fun, sort of chaotic ones, right? The Fiestas, sometimes the Chaos if I want to get wild, the Cartel, the fast, high pace. For me, Castle is boring because what you're really trying to do is make no mistakes, play extremely consistent, play extremely safe at the start of the game. For me, that's not exciting. Now, do I do it and win with it consistently? Yes, right? Castle is actually my highest win rate Mastermind. I'm like 99% sure it is. And that's because when I have to tell myself to play safe, I don't make any mistakes. And then once you get hit with that income, you're in a great spot. Now, with all that being said, I still don't really like to use it. I say like, oh, I'm cheating with Castle, right? It's unfair. But I don't really prefer it. Now, somebody that plays really safe overbuilding, this is a perfect Mastermind. This is amazing for you guys. And honestly, like, I don't even think it'd be that bad for a beginner, right? This could be a perfectly fine beginner, medium, or advanced player, because all you really have to do is just don't leak, right? So if you're new to the game and you're just trying to keep that recommended value at value or above, right? Because you're not pushing workers as hard as you should be. Let's be honest. A lot of the beginners don't know how hard you should be pushing workers. But then you get that 45 income, right? And it doesn't matter that you didn't have that many workers. Now you have a massive income. You might have more income than your opponents that had 2, 3, 4 more workers than you, because that income buff is just so gigantic. Now there are some downsides, right? If you get too far behind with Castle, then the 45 income is not going to help you scale back into the game, right? Like here I'm saying punished by Cartel or Fiesta, right? Because you get nothing extra at the start. It's normally when you get greedy, right? Not when you play safe. Let's just be honest. When you play safe, you're usually pretty fine. When you get greedy and you try to push workers like a different Mastermind, right? A more aggressive Mastermind, and they catch you, oh, you're in big trouble. All right, and now you're just trying to hang on. You're hanging on by a thread saying, please, please, just let me get to wave 11. Let me get to wave 11, right? That's your plan, right? If you make a mistake. And yeah, you really do want to have a healthy king. I think I've always said, like, as long as your king is above 70% by wave 11, you should be fine, right? Like, most of those castle games, you're going to be in a good spot. Because, like, yeah, as castle, there's a good chance you're going to take some damage. But if it's not that much damage, and then you get the income buff, you're in a great spot. You're in a fantastic spot. You also you get a reroll, just as a lot of the other Masterminds, just one reroll. Pick your 10 units, just the basics of the greed, the regular lock-in. Yeah, nothing too wild on that. All right, so Cartel, 9 income, minus 36 after wave 10. This is an amazing Mastermind, once again, for that fast gameplay. All right, so let me just say it again. Cartel, you start with 9 income, right? Which is the most in the game. It's higher than YOLO. It's higher than all the other Masterminds, right? It's the highest income that you can possibly start with. However, after wave 10, so like with Castle, you gain 45 income. With Cartel, you lose 36 income. So this is the flip-flop, where with Castle, we want to be in the game, right? We don't have to be in the lead. We just have to be in the middle of the pack, right? Of course, being ahead is great, or being barely behind is all right. With Cartel, if you're behind and you get hit with that minus 36, you're in big trouble. And so that's why Cartel is probably one of those medium to high skill level, right? It's really great at the start, right? A new player, you do your roll, right? You choose your 6 out of 10 units. You've got a good one. You're having a fun time. And then wave 11, 12 happens, and you look at the power score, and you're super far behind. And your teammate is like, what happened to you? He's pinging your power score. Well, it's because of that minus, right? And I used to have a thing I would say, and people never seem to understand it. So maybe on this video, I can really describe it well. With Cartel, you want long waves, which is why it's a beautiful Mastermind with Fiesta. Now, Doofus, and I guess I could go back to Castle really quick. Castle, you're going to want short waves, right? So we're just going to do math really quick here, guys. And this will explain both Castle and Cartel, why you want fast starts and fast games and slow games, depending on which Mastermind you're choosing. So, Cartel, start with that 9 income. You're trying to get it rolling, right? Let's say the game state takes 10 minutes to get to wave 11, right? There was no leaks, and although you have the highest income at like 120, and the closest next to you is like 100, your 120 goes down to, what is that, 84, right? You don't have that much income, right? And compared to other players, it's also, you're less now, right? You're less now. I'm going to explain this, don't worry. Percentage based, that 36 out of 120 is what, like 26%, 25% of your income? It's a pretty huge amount. Now, let's say the game had 7 waves on which are leaked. You've leaked them, they've leaked you, back and forth. You have so much income. You have 250 income, and then you lose 36. I mean, it's barely 15% of your income. So it's not that outstanding of a number, right? So the more income you have, of course, makes sense, right? The more income you have, the less of degradation you're going to have when that minus 36 happens. But in order to really conceptualize it, you need longer waves, right? A longer game state in order for this to happen. And how do you make that happen? You play with a Fiesta. You even pro leak, right? You're Cartel, and I know that you're not trying to leak, right? But if you do leak, big deal, right? It's giving me more time to compound my Cartel income interest, right? On the flip side, as we were talking about Castle before, it would be the opposite, right? That 45 income in a game that took forever that has, like I said, 250 income, all right? You're at 250 income wave 10, which would be outstanding. That'd be insane. And you get 45 from Castle. Well, that's a 20%, about a 20% increase. That's nice, right? It's good. But if it's a really starvy, really starvy can work, or a fast game, right? Starvy can work if not a lot of people have income. That's a little more in detail. But if it's a really fast game, right? It's really fast. No leaks on both sides. This is for Castle, right? This is for Castle. No leaks, and you have 100 income. Most of your opponents have 100 income or 110, and then you get 45. That's almost a 50% increase, right? So Castle, right? If we had like the pointers, right? Castle would be, you want like a shorter game is better, right? And then if you had like Cartel, it'd be the flip, where a longer game is better, right? Something like that to sort of conceptualize. But maybe I didn't explain that the best, right? You want more income before that penalty hits. And then with Castle, if you didn't have that much income, right, it wouldn't be that penalizing. That's just what I'm sort of trying to say. Maybe my Cartel description is not as good as it should be. But in any case, Cartel, that high income is amazing. Leaky combos are fine. Fiesta is fine. Double Cartel is fine if you guys are really, really trying to push workers, right? I love Cartel. I think it's really fun to play with. You can scale if you get ahead in the early game, right? You do kind of need a lead because that 36 income penalty, it's punishing, right? It's punishing. You're gambling that you're going to play really good early, and you'll be ahead enough or in a good spot to where it's not that bad. Biggest problem, and I say it right here, is if you get starved, right? If you're getting starved as Cartel, and you're not getting to push workers, you're in danger, right? You're in danger, because then it's going to turn into one of those games where you have very little income, and then the penalty hits, and now you have even less income. Final thing I'll say is, if you're bottom of the power score with Cartel, you're in big, big trouble. Specifically in the pre-10, right? A Cartel who's in last place, it's a bad sign of things to come, right? But if you're in first place, it's great, right? You're doing what you should do. You should be in the lead as Cartel, right? You should get ahead. But I love Cartel. It's one of my favorite masterminds. I do enjoy that fast gameplay. I like playing with it when I have a Fiesta teammate. I know we talked about earlier. Fiesta goes good with a duo teammate, and Fiesta Cartel is probably one of the best combos in the game for the leaky, aggressive early gameplay. Next, we've got Champion. Champion, one of these new masterminds. I think the next three are, all of them are new masterminds. What am I talking about? Champion. You're going to buff one unit. You start with 250 gold, no income, no additional gold. You're going to buff one unit at any of your choosing with 9% attack speed and 9% damage reduction. Right? This is a really cool mastermind. Really cool. Does it work? It can. Right? If you have the correct unit at the start, I think it works. A lot of people, and I know we're talking about Champion just as a mastermind, but let me just give my overview first. Champion is almost like we talked about with Chaos earlier, to where you need to upgrade your units. Champion, you need to use the darn buff, right? You get to choose when you use that buff. You don't have to place it on wave 1. You can place it on wave 5. You can place it on wave 10. You can place it at any point. You could save it the whole game. Please don't do that, but you could, right? You really should use it sooner than later, right? You really should use the champion buff sooner than later. And the reason is you want to use your buff, right? You want to use what you can to get ahead earlier in the game, right? Like if you're going to put it on a flower or an archer or a bone crusher or a green devil, and you use it aggressively to push workers, that's how champion should be used, right? You want to use it to push as hard as possible, as quickly as possible. That's just my perspective. Now, you could be one of those players that waits and places it on a T6 that can be viable, right? You don't have Grarl, you don't have Pirate Skeleton, and you want to place it on a Holy Avenger, right? There's Vampire in the game, and you're trying to make that amazing Sovereign with Champion that's so strong. That's great. The problem is if you get punished beforehand, just like with Castle, right? If you get punished early, it doesn't matter if you're finally able to place that Holy Avenger with the Champion buff. If you've already taken king damage or you've lost a lot of gold, it can be really punishing. It can really hurt your game. So that's where, when I first played with Champion teammates, I really got upset a little bit because I had teammates that would not use it until wave 11. I had teammates that would not use Champion until wave 11. I would be Fiesta, and we took tons of king damage early. So by the time that my teammate had used Champion, it was almost worthless. Like they placed on like a Violet, and it really didn't have any change. Whereas if they'd placed that on a Violet when they had the unit wave 4 or 5, oh, that would have been so much more cover. They would have been able to push more workers, play more aggressively, and it would have been really sweet. So Champion is sort of that balance of, do I save it for the perfect unit, or do I place it on a good unit just so I can get ahead early? And that's sort of one of those things you have to decide when you play Champion. Am I going for that godly unit and being greedy, and maybe I can get away with it, maybe I get punished? Or do I just use it instantly, try to get a lead? It would have been nice to have Champion with my doppelganger with Vampire, right? This would have been really good. Unfortunately, I had to use it earlier, right? It's a really cool mastermind. I like it with Chieftain Cheese. I know we talked about that earlier, where you're making a really big tanky unit, really big strong unit. But in that case, same thing, right? If you want to put it on that end game unit, you need to place that end game unit pretty early, right? You can't wait until wave 12, 13, 14 to place that godly unit that's going to be this big, massive tank, or you're not getting use out of your buff in the early game. So, in terms of skill level, I would say champion. I would say medium to advanced. Um, I think you need to know the right units to place it on. And I'm actually thinking about making a tier list of championable units. Fingers crossed that'll come out pretty soon, maybe within a month or so. Let me know if you guys are wanting something like that. But I think you need to know the units to place it on that could be good with it, right? Whether it's for godliness, whether it's for pushing aggressively, or if it's just for a safe, consistent start, right? So you sort of have to know the right championable units. But I still do like champion. I've played a lot of good games with it this season. So, Kingsguard. Now this is a pretty highly talked about mastermind. One in which I did not enjoy when it first came out this season. Kingsguard. You're going to start with 3 income, and your king, right? Your king is going to have 10% attack speed, 10% damage reduction. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is. It really is a solid mastermind, especially since they added the income, as they changed it up and nerfed it and then improved it, nerfed it and then improved it. I think Kingsguard's in a pretty good spot, and I would say this is beginner to advanced, right? I'm gonna say right now that I think anybody could play Kingsguard. Even in the beginner, I think there's absolutely zero downside to playing it. The 3 income, choosing your role, perfectly fine situation. Yeah, the 3 income is good. It's not great, but your king being so strong really does make you feel comfortable. Gives you that sort of freedom state of mind where if we take a little king, it won't be that bad. It can work with many different styles. You could go the castle scaling for the late game, right? Or you could go the Fiesta aggressive, and it's fine if we take king damage, right? Because we have Kingsguard. So, hey, Fiesta, you push. Hey, Kingsguard, you push. It's fine if we take damage. Or as I said, with castle, and you guys are both just playing really safe, really consistent, trying to get to that wave 11, that wave 12, and then start playing your game and start scaling like crazy, right? Because Kingsguard is probably the best late game mastermind in the game. Castle would have a discussion, right? Castle would have a discussion with Kingsguard. But when I say that, what I'm saying is all the masterminds can give you a lead or get you behind, right? Kingsguard could be average, could be behind, could be ahead. But the amount of times that I've played games with Kingsguard, and I 100% thought that my king or my opponent's king was going to die to the big send, a big leak, and then it lived so easily is insane. Like, your king is on steroids with Kingsguard, right? And you really don't think about it that much, but like the 10% really does way more than you'd expect, right? It does way more than you'd expect. And yeah, if you have full king, oh my goodness, then it's even crazier. So you do still need some king ups. Some king ups help. Just for an example, I had a game recently. Teammate was Kingsguard. We had 44% HP, maybe 2 or 3 king ups, right? Not many at all. And we leaked like 27 creeps on wave 16. Every other game we would have died instantly, no question, we were dead. We died to like 2 creeps still being alive. If we had 1 more king up because of Kingsguard, we would have lived. And that just doesn't happen, right? There's no other mastermind that gives you that protection. Like it's insurance. It's king insurance. It shouldn't be Kingsguard, it should be king insurance. Because it's insane. But yeah, if you're gonna use this, don't be afraid to push workers. Don't be afraid to save Mythium in the mid game because your king really, really is strong. And I'm talking myself into this mastermind. I really do like this mastermind. Even like in a Nova Cup in a tournament, sorry, in a tournament state, I think this mastermind works really well too, because you're really aggressive. Everybody's saving a lot, and if you could just survive that one big send, and they don't have Kingsguard like you do, it can be really sweet. So I do like Kingsguard. Double lock-in. Speak of the devil. 1 income, and you lock in 2 fighters, right? And let me just clarify, I know at the start I sort of mixed up how lock-in was a random roll. I didn't say that at the start, I said you choose your roll. With double lock-in, you 100%, you choose 2 units, you choose Priestess of the Abyss and a Mass Spirit, and then you choose the rest of your units. You will choose the rest of your units. Let's look at it. Alright, so you're going to choose a double lock-in for 1 income, you're going to choose Priestess, you're going to choose Max Spirit, and then you can create your roll. Right? Then you're like, oh, okay, these are the units I want that go well with Mass Spirit and Priestess. So this is a very strong mastermind, especially when I said at the start how you learn to use 1 unit really well. Well, what if you can learn 2 units really well for that amazing combo? Mask, Nightmare Butcher, if you're really adept, like a Doomsday APS, Ocean Templar Gates, right? Angler Steed, a lot of people like that for the Kingpins. It's a strong mastermind, right? This is very strong. For me, going all the way back, it's sort of one of the more boring masterminds. I don't find it as exciting. Just playing with the same 2 units almost feels like you're cheating a little bit. But it is a sweet one, and I think it's definitely beginner oriented. Beginner to medium. I think at the advanced level, at the higher elo, this is not as viable as a mastermind. Like, it can be, don't get me wrong. But unless you actually have like a Legion spell, this is a little more in depth. Unless you have a Legion spell like with Nightmare Butcher Vamp, right? It really doesn't make that much sense to go double lock in most of the time. But yeah, it's very viable. Yes, it's only 1 income, but it's still just so strong. It really is. If you know how to play 2 units well, you really just need those 2 units the whole game. That's just all there's to say about double lock-in, right? Like that, there's not much to talk about. At some point, maybe I should put up a video with like the best double lock-in combo, flower mask, flower aqua, Boar's Zeus, with Boar's bazooka. A lot of these are just great combos that you could really build your entire game around. And so it works, right? It works well. Just for me, it's kind of on the boring side. But I think it's a perfectly viable mastermind. I think it's in a fine spot. I think the 1 income is good. Not really too much downside to it other than the income only being 1. Yeah, I mean it's cool, right? I mean, there's not much to say about it. It's lock-in on steroids, right? It's lock-in on steroids, but with side effects, right? Side effects being only 1 income, not the 4, and not the ability to go random, but still solid. And the final mastermind, which is not really a mastermind in itself, is called Megamind, where you randomly get a mastermind, any of the masterminds, but you get 1 gold on top, right? Just for verification and just to let you guys know, lock-in and double lock-in are supposed to be extremely rare with Megamind. The percentage of Megamind lock-in, Megamind double lock-in is very low. Let me just say that. Just to let you guys know, that's because Megamind is sort of trying to like mix things up. And those 2 masterminds are sort of like just so just sort of basic. I don't want to say boring, but that from the developer's point of view, they're trying to mix things up. The players wanted it more variability, whereas just Megamind lock-in doesn't have as much variability. And before you say, what is 1 gold gonna do, right? What is 1 gold gonna do? Well, I think we earlier talked about cash out, right? Cash out losing that 1 gold. I mean, it's lost a couple of gold, right? That 1 gold can really change the game, right? 1 gold in the early waves can go from 4 workers to 5 workers, or 5 workers to 6 workers, or 3 workers to 4 workers, right? Or allow you to place that extra angler, or allow you to place that extra T1 because you're scared of Ascent on wave 2. That 1 gold actually is extremely beneficial. It really can be helpful. Now skill level, this has got to be like the highest skill level of all, right? Like this is sort of the end game. You know exactly how to play every mastermind with some level of comfortability. You know what you're doing, and you want to just mix it up. And if you're mixing it up, 1 gold is just awesome, right? And it's fun. It's fun. Like I enjoy it. I enjoyed it for a period of time. I also really like the effect it does. Let's watch the effect, right? So I'm choosing to go with Megamind, and it's like, oh, Cartel, right? So now I'm gonna be Cartel with 1 gold on top. So I like Megamind, right? It's like nothing too special, right? It's nothing too special because like the best of the best players, like for me, I want to go Fiesta, I want to go Cartel, I want to go Chaos. With Megamind, that's not a guarantee. Like if I could like say, hey, Megamind, these 3 masterminds or these 4 masterminds, then it'd be amazing. But what if you get Megamind Redraw and you hate Redraw, right? So there can be extreme downsides to Megamind unless you're comfortable with all the masterminds. Unless you're comfortable with all of them and enjoy them relatively equal, Megamind can have major upside and it can have major downside. But it's still like another one of these, like just like double lock-in didn't have much to it. It's an upgrade of lock-in, right, with upsides and downsides. Megamind is just every other mastermind that we've discussed here, but 1 gold, 1 gold on top, right? Like I mean, think about Redraw, right? Think about you go Megamind Redraw. It gives you one free reroll at the start of the game. All right, you don't have to pay for that 1 reroll because you had the 1 gold. So it's a cool mastermind. It's fun to play with. I really like. I know we just saw the effect. I really like the effect where it's and then it shows you the mastermind. I guess that takes a couple of seconds away from you actually doing your roll, but it's pretty cool. Like I said, you probably want to go with a more advanced gameplay before you start playing this one. Just because what if you get a mastermind that you have no idea how to play, and now you're just thrown into it without even choosing it, can be quite concerning, right? So, but that's Megamind, right? It's just 1 gold, 1 gold extra. And once again, I do want to reiterate for the medium to higher level players, I know a lot of people say, 1 gold doesn't matter that much. You need to try Megamind a couple of times, and you tell me if 1 gold doesn't matter, right? How many times do we talk about the 0 gold buff, right? How many times do we talk about 0 gold buff, right? Or you ping 48, ping 49 gold. This 1 gold can make up for that, right? And give you that 0 gold buff. So Megamind can have major upsides. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think I'm going to take a look at my win rates, just so we can sort of talk about that before I finish up the video here. But at the end of the day, you want to play what you enjoy, right? Like at the end of the day, you really do want to go with what you like to play. Like I said, like I would say if I had to rank them, I think Castle is probably the best mastermind, but I don't like playing it, right? I think Castle is probably the best mastermind right off the bat, but I don't enjoy it. It's not that high level gameplay like of intense pushing, intense leaking, really aggressive gameplay. It's boring, but it wins a lot, right? So for me, like I'm going to play what I enjoy as opposed to what I want to win with. And you sort of have to choose that for yourself. Are you playing with what you enjoy, or are you playing to win the game, right? So that's just so important, right? Like if you love playing Poda every time, go with lock-in. lock in POTA every single game, because that's what you're playing Legion for. I want to play POTA every single game. It's what I'm comfortable with. It's what I win with. It's what I like playing. That's just all there is to it, right? And yeah, like we talked about the Megamind, the YOLO, the Redraw, these masterminds that are a lot riskier and harder to play, they can be hard. They can be hard to learn, right? Like at the end of the day, like the added income of Cartel, the added income of YOLO, is there for a reason, because that there's punishment to be had with it being a random roll. There's punishment to be had with the wave 11 minus income, right? And so when you play these riskier masterminds, know going in there that like, hey, I'm gonna get punished if I'm not careful playing this higher level mastermind. You have to understand that, right? So don't be too upset if you're playing Cartel and it's your first game and you're in last place, right? And then it's wave 15 and you're like 600 power score behind. It happens, right? Like you're gonna have to play it a couple of times before you really understand it and know how to execute the plan correctly, right? Because certain masterminds you really have to push, certain masterminds you really have to overbuild, certain masterminds you just want to play really consistent, really balanced, right? And so you sort of have to balance that and sort of understand, and that just comes with time. Like I mean, I've played 5,000-6,000 games now, and even me sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm pushing hard enough or not, or pushing too hard, right? So it's a balance of just learning and saying, hey, I messed up. What did I do wrong with this mastermind? Okay, if I play Castle again, how should I play this differently? I mean, in order for us to be the best players and the best with different masterminds, you have to look at it analytically, right? That's just the truth. But yeah, overall, what did so I said the safest are the lock-ins, the greeds, the cash outs. Yeah, so we got double lock-in, single lock-in, greed, cash out. Yeah, those are fairly safe. Best for new players for sure. Riskiest, of course, are my favorites. Most of my favorites: the Fiesta, the Cartel, the YOLO. Redraw, once again, risky in the sense of which it kind of sucks, right? It's I think Redraw and cash out are probably at the bottom of my list right now. I used to love cash out, but like the higher you get, that 1 gold really matters, and then just keep taking away 1 gold, keep taking away 1 gold, really does punish cash out. And maybe on the risky, I would have added chaos too, or I would have added chaos to like my favorites. See, it's funny that I have cash out because I still like cash out. I still like it for like those analytical games. I do love having 5-6 workers with absolutely no punishment at the start of the game. But now it's harder to get those 5-6 workers. Only certain units, only certain unit combinations does that actually work. So you got to look out for that. But yeah, I love playing my favorites, even though we might look at the win rates here and it might not be the highest. But let's take a look at my win rates and we will finish up this video. All right, so these are my builder stats for this season. I'm thinking that my face should be off to the side and it's not going to be covering. So I've actually only played Castle 5 games. Only 5 games this season with Castle, but I'm 4-1. So as I said, like I try to avoid Castle. I just don't have fun with it. But when I do play it, and I'm just gonna let you know, these Castle games were against high-level players. These were games that I really wanted to win. So when I do play Castle, it worked out. Redraw surprisingly is really high. Don't ask me how. Only a couple of games played. None of these win rates really show that much, other than the Castle being number 1. And probably Fiesta being my most played and towards the sort of bottom-ish of the pack, right? Like it's the middle to the bottom of the pack. I really don't have that great a win rate of playing Fiesta, but I enjoy it. And so for me personally, I'm at the point of the game where I want to have fun as opposed to win, right? If I wanted to win, I would probably just go Castle like random lock-in, right? Those are the 2 masterminds I would just spam personally. They're towards the higher side of my win rate. Kingsguard, this is probably because I was doing Sui crosses, and Cartel, as you can see, like, I mean, I find myself as a relatively high elo player, and I got punished, right? Seemingly I got punished as Cartel. So yeah, so here's just some of your win rates. If you don't know how to find that, you're gonna click Game Stats, click on Fighter Stats, and you click on Builder Stats, and this will show you what you're good with and what you're not good with. Yeah, I think that sort of wraps up this video on masterminds. I hope that this helped explain most of the masterminds to you. A little bit of how to play them, a little bit of why you should play certain ones and maybe not play other ones until you're ready. But let me know what your guys' favorite masterminds are. And if you have any other further questions on masterminds, please let me know. My plan for learning is to create more of these PowerPoints on topics of which I can help teach you guys how to play Legion a little bit better. And that's my plan. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.